Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of the Velvethamma Show. Today I'm going to focus on putting these rear wing windows, if you want to call them that, back in this 04 Ford F350 Super Duty. These go in the extended cab style doors, like this guy right here. And basically I took these windows out to do the paint work so that I could scuff this edge and have fresh paint in here. All I'm going to do is take some glass cleaner and wipe that edge off. But I want to show you guys this. This is the actual window frame. I've taken the window off of the frame just for ease of installation. But basically we're going to use this product right here. This is Window Weld ribbon sealer. It's 1/4 inch for these small windows. And what we're going to do, this comes like that right there. It's just a little round bead, and you set it onto the window on this frame on the inside edge. I've already removed the old tape. Basically it just peels off. So I've wiped this edge off as well. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you guys set up on the camera here, and we're going to put some of the sealer on here. I'm going to grab a pair of rubber gloves and a razor blade, and we should be good to go. So I'll bring you guys back in a minute. Alright, so we're ready to go here. Basically, a couple things to keep in mind with this particular window off the Ford Super Duty. It's got these clips that are sort of the hinge for the window, and they lock into a couple of tabs. They are going to float around on you. You just got to kind of watch when you install the window. This is the top of the window. I want to start at the bottom, so when I seam the two pieces of sealer together, it's at the bottom. If you seam it at the top and for whatever reason you don't get a perfect seal, it will actually leak. So we don't want any leaks. That is definitely not the goal, but basically, I'm going to flip my camera screen around here so I can see what you're seeing. Basically, you've got that sealer right there, and we're going to start in the middle of the bottom. And you're going to stay, should look to see where the sealer was before you start, but basically it's just outside of the studs that hold the window on, and inset from the outside. Now if a little squishes out, it's not going to ruin the job on you. But you certainly don't want it to be squishing way out. That's the other reason why we use the 1/4 inch sealer. And you know what, before I get too carried away, we're going to peel the backing tape off this as I go, because you can't turn it around the edge very well if you don't. You definitely don't want this stuff falling on a bunch of dirt or anything, because it'll pick up lint like a magnet. And you don't really need to push it down or anything like that, just so it's, you know, it's got to be stuck to there, but it's pretty tacky stuff to begin with. We're just going to walk it around. Don't stretch it, because what happens as you compress the window, if you've stretched it, you've elongated it and made so that you have less contact area. For these little windows, it probably is not the end of the world, but better to be safe than sorry. Once you put it down, you kind of want to just not monkey with it anymore. Because it's pretty tacky. It will stay where you put it. The reason for putting the gloves on is it sticks to your fingers worse than it sticks to gloves, so. And then when we get to the end, you don't want to overlap it. You want it to be butted up right against. And you can sort of form that with your finger a little bit as needed, but I'll go around this edge and make sure that I'm not hanging out too far with it, so once it starts to squish, it doesn't come outside of the window frame itself. And you're not hurting anything by touching it with your gloved fingers. You're not transferring any oils off your hands or anything like that. And where this joins together, I just kind of knead it together just a little bit there, just to make sure it's going to do what it's supposed to. So there you go. That's now on the window. Or excuse me, on the window frame. We'll go ahead and set you guys up on the stand, and I'll set that into the window opening so you guys can see that. And then what we're going to want to do is get some of the fasteners on it so it doesn't fall for whatever reason. We're also going to make sure that these little tabs kind of stay where they're supposed to. Maybe roll that window weld just over the edge of that metal just to hold them, because that's your window hinge. Make sure you have the side that you seam together on the bottom like we discussed. And I'm going to actually walk inside here and just set it right into the holes. Before you go pressing anything down, make sure that you're where you're supposed to be. I know I'm standing right in front of the camera, that's not helping you guys any, but what you're going to have to remember with these particular windows, and I haven't pressed it tight yet, but you can see there is a spot where the lock mechanism goes. If these are not lined up where you can get your bolts in them, you're going to be in trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and get some nuts started on that. The other thing is you have these little clips right here, and these go, I believe, I'll have to look at the back door panel and get back with you so I can show you the correct placement of those, but I believe they go on the same side as the hinge. So I'll bring you back in a second. All right, I was pretty sure that these clips do go on the hinge side, and I'm going to show you one of them here real quick. It's got this little hook edge on it, and that edge actually goes toward the window opening. These are 9mm headed studs, so if you don't drop your fasteners on the ground. Just get her bolted up here real quick, and then we'll just go around this whole door and try and draw it down evenly. That tape never, or sealant never gets real stiff, so it's one of those things where you can keep drawing it down little by little. You definitely don't want to do this in the cold. It's about 65 in the shop, so that's not too bad. But if you draw it down, try and draw it down real tight when it's cold, you run the risk of breaking things. So you just want to be careful. So making sure, again, those holes stayed lined up. I'm actually gonna, let's see if you guys can see that. Move over a little bit here. Get them all started in a little bit here, because I just have them on finger tight. And you can also go outside and tap on it a little bit, but make sure the corners get seated in, and you can look around and test it with water if you like. I've never seen this stuff leak before, as long as you do your homework. Just go around tightening them a little at a time. And as you tighten it, that adhesive will expand out and fill that gap right in for you. A heat gun might help if you have a pool shop as far as getting that adhesive to compress. And you don't want to get crazy tightening these fasteners down and trying to draw it in, because they're only in a rubberized plastic window frame. You could even let this set for 10 or 15 minutes or an hour or whatever in the sun, and then do your final tightening. Because as you go around this, it just keeps compressing more and more until the actual window frame pretty much contacts the door opening, the window opening. Alright, we're going to let it sit there for now, and I'll go back and make sure that it's snugged up later, but you guys can see me out here. I'm sort of pushing on these corners a little bit to make sure there's contact, because there's no bolt down in the corner. And basically this is just a permanently gummy style adhesive. So even if you took these out a year later or 10 years later, that should still be gummy. So there you go. That's how to install that window frame, and then we'll bring you back in a little bit and see how by pushing up in the corners I've got a tight fit. Now this is not going to be bottomed out dead flat. It'll be close to it though, so I'll just keep working around that edge, and we'll go ahead and install the window. So I'll bring you back in a few minutes. Alright, now one thing I want to show you guys here before we go and put this window back in. The window has holes in it. Okay, you can see these holes. You have basically this little nut, and it's got a hex on it right there, and the window hinge has a hex in it that holds this, because there's no way to hold it from the outside. Also, on the outside of the window you have this little washer, and it's got a lip on it here, and that actually fits inside the glass. On the inside you have a couple things. You have a Phillips head screw that goes through a regular plastic square cut washer, and then another one of those, I guess we'll call it a grommet because it's got that little lip on it. So the lips on the grommet sandwich the window in. I've also put a little tiny bit, and I think you guys may be able to see this, a little bit of Loctite in there. Is it necessary? I don't know, but what I do know is when I took these bolts out, they had Loctite on them. So I'm going to set this window into place and hold it there with masking tape. I'm going to get that set up, and if you have two people, you could do it without the masking tape. So I'm just going to, since I'm solo, I'm going to do it that way, and I'll bring you guys back. All right, so I've got the window taped in there. One thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to tell you before I stuck it up in there, these little washers with the lip on them that I said have to sandwich the glass. One sandwich is on this side and the other is directly on the other side of the glass. And then you have, I think you can see my finger in there, the metal hinge. Well, there's nothing to hold in there. If you just take just the most minuscule little piece of that butyl tape and stick it to that washer or grommet, whatever you'd like to call it, that will hold it in place while you hold the window up there. And then you take the little outside button-headed nut with the other end of that grommet, and you spin it around until it'll kind of lock into that hinge because it's hex shaped. And then you have your Phillips screw with that flat, I guess you call that a trim washer of some sort, that will go over that and get those started, and then you can tighten those down with your, it's a pretty large Phillips head screwdriver, to be honest with you. But just be careful. If you, for whatever reason, got those little washers that go on there off-centered and you start cranking down on that window, you could risk breaking that glass. So I'm just putting the top one in here real quick, getting it started. And then we'll go get the Phillips screwdriver and tighten it down. All right, it's a fairly large Phillips screwdriver here to tighten these down, but just, if you're not sure if those little grommets are seated, tighten down a little bit and check it out. Make sure that they are, because like I said, if they're not, this little washer doesn't want to sit where it's supposed to. If they're not, you may cause yourself some grief. I know the outside ones are. I'm gonna stick my head in the way here and double check that those other ones are centered up. At this point, with that in there loose, you can take and bolt your hinge back up, because I believe, let's look, is that, no, you can't bolt it back up yet, because I think you can see that this is the other side door panel, but it actually bolts outside of this, so you could temporarily bolt it back up, but we're just going to go ahead and tighten these down the rest of the way, because I believe that we have it. Pull that tape off because that window can't go anywhere now. It's got screws in it. Just be careful. Be careful when you open it, because all this is spring steel. And these don't open very far, but you can look and get a little bit better angle to make sure that those washers were where they were supposed to be. And that's tight enough. You don't have to put brute strength into it. So that window is now assembled, and you can put your trim panel back on. We'll double check that all these are set. Again, you don't need to put, you know, half a turn before it breaks kind of strength into it. Just go around and keep checking them, because that butyl tape will start to relax into where it needs to be. Now, if a little of that butyl tape squished outside, it's not the end of the world, you know. You can clean that up. You can tuck it in a little bit, but I'm not going to slam that door since I don't have it latched. But there you go. So now the window's installed, and put the trim panel back on. So hope you guys enjoyed that little snippet. See what I mean? That's just real difficult. It would be to get in here and mask this up if you were going to paint it. It's just easier to remove that window. And for removal, I would just use like a flat plastic scraper after you remove those bolts, and sort of run that scraper around in the edge to make sure that you're breaking that seal, and then take it out. I took the glass out because I wasn't sure if this was a urethane window or not, and it just easier to take the glass out, trust me. All right guys, so there you go. Hope you guys are having a good one, and we'll catch you on the next one.